This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi there, so today we're talking about change success and how you can measure the chances of successfully implementing change. So there's models here for people and businesses, but we're just going to talk generally about the topic. But Jack's got some great tools we can help to roll out if you're planning change within the business to give you, I suppose, a grading of how likely this is to succeed. Is that it?
I would say so, yeah. It's really interesting because how many times have we spoken to clients, or even probably on our own working
teams internally?
And went, why is it so difficult to make this change?
Yeah.
Surely it's not difficult.
We came up with an idea. Surely that's enough.
Yeah, we've got the idea. We've got an idea how we're going to do it, but it isn't working. Why not? So this is a really interesting tool, and the way that we use it is a kind of a little diagnostic tool that we use with our clients to kind of ahead of making change, get an understanding of how successful change is going to be, because statistically, it's not very good.
Yeah, because this comes from research from Dr. Chris Mason, who's the founder of Mindshop, which is a lot of the tools we use are Mindshop based. Mm-hmm. And according to the literature, it was an 8-year study on the subject, and he basically says here that there's only a 30% probability that change will actually succeed. Now, I don't know what the definition of succeed is and what was deemed to be a big enough thing to measure change, but if you're planning something of any scale or any kind of size, it would suggest that you're not likely to succeed. And this is a great thing to run before you try to implement change, to see presumably if there's any weaknesses, because this model will tell you where you're lacking, where your scores aren't where they need to be, to determine whether or not it's a worthy endeavour to give it a go.
Yeah, it basically lays out the areas which you need to consider when you're implementing change, and gives you a pretty good idea of where your weaknesses are and where you need to improve. In terms of how the model works, you need to be scoring kind of around the 78% chance to be getting towards the optimal chance of succeeding in something. So it's
and that score's worked out because you answer. There's only 20 questions, isn't it? And they're quite easy to understand questions. These aren't some weird, esoteric, kind of cryptic.
Yeah.
It's fairly basic stuff. But they're based on 3 key areas, aren't they, Jack? So what's the 3 key areas?
So the 3 areas are kind of beliefs, capability, and readiness. And these in turn are kind of broken down into smaller areas as well, which again, these are kind of got scores also attached to them based on their importance to the overall kind of success, I suppose, of the change. So
let's not go through them all, because there's what's that, 8, 9 different subsections. But within readiness, you've got the need for change, the vision, personal energy, and the plan. And instantly you can see why these things would fail. So if you just fancy doing something, but there's no driver, there's no real need for change, you haven't got as much reason to implement the change. It doesn't need to succeed as much, does it? But if you're a cafe that was closed during lockdown, your need to develop a delivery service would have scored 100% on that. So
and similarly, if there was some kind of legislative change as well, suddenly you now have to.
You've got to start doing something peculiar in your work. If you literally have to do it, then that increases the chances of succeeding. Yeah. Which stands to reason, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And again, if you look at vision, well, I kind of know roughly what I want to do, but how will you know if you've succeeded?
Yeah,
So you can see how these work. They're quite.
It's quite obvious.
Sense, aren't they?
Yeah, and vision is certainly no accident. You've always hear about high performance people and leaders. The success is somewhat attributed to their very clear vision of things.
If you know exactly what you want to do and all the people around you know what you need to do, then you're more likely to bring in a change or get success in a change.
Totally, yeah.
And so personal energy, what's the connection there then, Jack? Is that just...
As we all know, change is difficult and it can be draining. And if it doesn't go right first time round, you may suddenly feel, maybe this change isn't as important. Maybe
or maybe you haven't got it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So actually I was talking to a business yesterday. They've got 3 or 4 simple things they need to do to reduce working 60 hours a week. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take another 10 hours a week for a few weeks before they'll feel the benefit. So if this 60 hours a week has to change, they'll have to find another 10. Well, that's where your personal energy comes in, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've got to really want it.
That's a really good point, because this change will be happening. The work you put into implementing this change is happening on top of your existing workload.
While the thing that's not working is already happening.
Yeah. So you're putting your energy into...
While the old one is still going on.
Yeah. You're spending all of your money trying to get around the existing systems and do your best you can to make them work, whilst designing the new systems that are hopefully going to save you some time further down the line. Yeah. And that's where people get a little bit kind of lost, or they don't really see the bigger picture of things. Like when we talk about change, people go, I haven't got time for that. It's like, well...
I'm working. It's like, but this is work.
Yeah. But you're working on...
We're not asking you to take any time out of work. This is also work. Change in your life is work, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Well, in a work capacity anyway.
Yeah.
So okay, and so we've talked about readiness. Capability is the next thing. And within capability, there's only 2 breakdowns here: perseverance and high performance habits. So what's this about? Is this about whether you've got the technical skills to implement the change?
Not necessarily the technical skills, but just got those habits in place that will make change a lot easier, or you're more prepared to. You have the tools at your disposal to actually make that change possible. So in terms of like your high performance habits of being able to be well organized, being
it's like disciplined,
time management, stuff like that.
You've got to do the thing enough to make the new habit form, the new habit stick, the change to actually bind. Is that what it's getting at?
Definitely, and there's lots of literature out there in terms of habits, like Atomic Habits and stuff like that.
Awesome book, James Clear.
Yeah.
Start small, work big. Yeah. Fantastic. That you could. Yeah. I'm sure he has done whole podcasts on Atomic Habits. It's an awesome book. But yeah, it's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've got to find a way to creep it in.
Totally, yeah. So that's kind of the high performance habit stuff. Perseverance is probably linked a little bit to personal energy in the sense of success isn't going to happen. Like successful change is not going to happen overnight.
How doggedly will you stick to it? Yeah.
Like particularly when you're doing this like across a wider team. I experience it at the moment. You're trying to change very entrenched views and habits and viewpoints, bringing in new ways of doing things where they may not fully bought on at this point, and they're slowly coming around to it, but it requires you to just crack the whip occasionally.
So the perseverance is, we've talked about this, this is why we do it. Can you do it, please? And that's different to personal energy. Yeah. You might have the time and the energy to do it, but unless you're going to just keep knocking on that door until it opens, or keep banging that head off that door until it changes.
And similarly, if we want to bring this back to kind of a true person, if you're going to use this outside of work, like perseverance in terms of if you're going running, you've got it, and like in terms of your training for something, you've got to have that perseverance.
We're not talking about running. As we record this is the 2 days after the Great North Run, or Great North Walk, Run, Jog, Walk, Run, Jog. I think it's as we did it.
Cry.
Cry, crawl, wince. But anyway, more on that later.
Yeah, but I suppose the point still stands that perseverance, you've got, even if you're not getting those instant gains, you've still got to stick at it, because they will eventually come. Like if you give up straight away, then you might as well give up right now.
And it's funny, because I see this with my kids, and anyone who's got kids will see this. They'll possibly recognise this in themselves. So my kids can do some fantastically complex stuff with a joypad on a game they like, for instance. And yet if I ask them to do something that I think is relatively simple, but they're just not interested in it, they'll just, I can't do that. They'll give up. My dad, to the day he died, could never program the video to record anything.
He's still using a video, was he?
He never did. But if he did, he could never program the Skybox, the recorder, nothing. His desire to learn how to do it wasn't big enough that he just never made that change. He dismissed it. And he had someone else who would do it, so he didn't have to change, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
So you can see this everywhere, you know. So again, so my kids learned how to do, you know, they can work 28 buttons at a time on a joypad, whilst, you know, talking to their mates and doing all kinds, because they had the desire, the belief, the persistence, the energy, they put the time in, and you can see that with anything. You've got to have all of those things, and it's all got to come together at the right time, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So we've talked about capability, readiness. The final one is beliefs. So within beliefs is the mindset, the self-confidence, and the perceived benefits. I think the perceived benefits is an interesting one. You've got to see something better at the back end here, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got an end goal at the end of it in terms of this is what I anticipate is going to look like. Yeah. It's going to save us X amount of hours.
So linking back to the person I was talking about yesterday, we've got to improve their profitability, which means they won't have to work as much to make as much money.
Yeah.
And their biggest problem is they're working 60 hours a week. They could really do with 40 or less. They're one of the classic, you know, self-employed people who work for themselves because they didn't like working 40 hours a week, but they're working 60.
Exactly.
So yeah, you know, their perceived benefit is if they can crack this, they'll get hopefully 20 hours a week free with the same financial reward. That's a massive benefit, and you've got to be able to see that. Otherwise, why would you bother?
And that shows a real need for able to bounce these ideas off people, because they would have quite happily just keep bumbling along, complaining, I'm still working 60 hours.
Well, it's interesting because when we started on need for change, they're going to burn out.
Yeah.
If they don't change, they can't keep doing that. There isn't an option to keep doing what they're doing. So, you know, they're going to burn out. What they didn't have, which is a bit of a struggle here, because I'll tell you what, we'll come back in a second. Let's finish the other two off. And self-confidence is quite an obvious one, because if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to start. Are you?
Or if you're capable of making that change, then it's...
Yeah. If you think, well, I've tried before.
Yeah.
This is weight loss. You know, I think, I don't know what I'm pointing at. Yeah, I know I need to lose a bit more, don't worry, as evidenced by Sunday's performance. But if you think, well, I've done it before, I know I can do it, well, then you'll think, well, I know I can do it, I'll get round to it.
Yeah.
And then you need to wait for the need for change. When these trousers no longer fit, that'll trigger my need. And I know I can do it, so I'll fit back into these pants again sometime. But you've got to believe you can, otherwise you'll just never start. And it doesn't matter then if you've got the capability, the urgent need, all of those things. Confidence could be the single thing missing you that just makes you never try, couldn't it?
Yeah, and that's why these factors are all interrelated, and you can't necessarily have you need to have the full piece of the puzzle in order to make a true fist at kind of making a successful change personally and within the business. Like you can't kind of interchange and go, well, I've really got the capability of doing this, and I'm really ready to do it, but I don't believe I can do it.
Because we see this, it's funny, much as my client from yesterday might not like to hear this, but we've also got other clients who are making good money. Their sector is changing around them, but because they're sitting relatively comfortably, they haven't got the need for change. They're capable. They maybe haven't got the vision and they haven't got the energy because they've got used to getting a reasonable return from the business without putting that much into it. Yeah. So there's a danger that their very success is going to create a less successful future because they haven't got that same impetus, you know.
Yeah,
so
they can be.
It's everyone in all angles. This could get, isn't it?
Yeah, and then the cycle continues where they get complacent. Suddenly they start to lose clients, they lose profitability and then their margin and stuff, and then suddenly that's when the need for change.
The need for change is growing, and now is one of the dominant things that makes them. So let's work this through the Jack, because these add up to 100%, as all percents do.
Yes.
As all
nice.
Good, despite the X factor is 110%. You know, I know mathematically it's possible before you have a go, but this adds up to 100%. And you need to score 78% per the research to score well. So, you know, you could here have no self-confidence, you lose 12% for that. You could have no, you know, the mindset might be all wrong, you've lost another 12. You're kind of borderline able to do this. But if you start to lose another couple of decent scores here, what do you do about that then? So, you know, let's say capability, you score 0 on capability. that's not enough to get you over the line statistically. What do you do about that missing bit?
Well, in terms of developing, that's when we're looking at incapability is the perseverance and the high performance habits. Like you need to find a way of boosting that up, and that's easier said than done. Like you can't just be like, I'm now going to become high performing like that.
But you could get help from someone who can help you perform better. I didn't think of this. This wasn't just a pitch, but this is what we do with businesses. We sit and go, you said you were going to do that. Why did you not do it? A lot of business owners don't have that.
That accountability side.
That accountability might help you to improve the performance of your habits. It's like you need to get in the habit of blocking the time out to do this. You need to make sure you do it when you see it. Put it in your diary now. All of those things, which we could probably all be better at. It might just be that you can get help to improve those areas, couldn't you? Yeah,
and similarly on the perseverance side, you need to, just like you may have someone with the stick telling you need to do this, holding them accountable.
Yeah.
You've also got the carrot in terms of picking people off the ground when something's gone wrong.
Come on, it's not the end of the world. Yeah,
encouraging them to go at it again.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, and that's what I really like about what I do is that, sometimes there's the difficult conversations where, why didn't you do that? You said you were going to do that. But also, at the same time, when somebody's feeling a bit down, you can actually pick them up, turn them round, and just go, "That's where we started back there, and look where we are now."
Yeah.
Like, and then
are you back to the run here? Because this was you three shouting back, "Are you okay, Marty?"
No, sorry, I'm not trying to trigger some kind of post-traumatic stress disorder.
On the flashback. But so again, we'll just pick another one. Then that's the self-confidence. I'll actually look how far you've come. You can do this. You are doing this. It's just going to take a bit more time and a bit more energy.
Yeah.
But someone might say, well, I haven't got. I know I need to change, but I haven't got the vision. I haven't got a plan.
I don't know where to start.
Where do I even begin? But again, depending on what the need for change is, this is why you get help. This is why if you're trying to lose weight, you go to Slimming World or Weight Watchers or wherever you go. Someone to give you that boost, give you a roadmap to follow, don't you?
Yeah.
You haven't got to know it all. You can get help in to help boost these scores, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And what really good coaches do across all sectors, whether they're personal trainers or running coaches or whatever, is that they'll kind of break stuff down into manageable steps. Yeah. So someone might be encountered with a massive problem where they're like there's been a massive change in their industry, and I don't know how I'm meant to react to this. There's so many things I should do, but I don't know where to start. It's just like, okay, let's take a step back. Like break it down into more manageable steps.
How much time have you got? 2 hours a week, right? What can you do in 2 hours? What's the biggest impact you can make in those 2 hours? Let's do that. This week, let's do that. Next week, we'll see what needs done next. Yeah, so it's just someone to help you work through the...
And the visioning side's probably the most fun part. It's just like, well, where do you want to be? Like,
just let loose, dream, which is hard if you're deflated, you're beaten up, you've got no energy, your confidence is shot, you feel like an imposter, your capabilities all down. It's quite hard sometimes to even let yourself do that dream, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it's all, as I said, again, purely on a selfish kind of front, just doing those kind of sessions with clients. And there's a lot of people who start like that and they're like, I don't know. Yeah. As if like they're not allowed to think about these things. And then when you kind of warm them up a little bit and they just get a little bit more excited, and then you can see the energy builds from there. It
happened yesterday, from the start of the session to the end of the session. I don't know what I'm going to do. And by the end, we wrote on the little board 5 or 6 things. Couple of big ones, couple of little ones. It's like you can almost see the twinkle.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder if I can do that. Wow, imagine. So yeah, it sometimes just needs someone to help niggle that vision out of you, doesn't it? Do you think it's possible then, Jack? Let's say you do all of this and you get a terrible score. Does that mean you should just not bother?
I find it very difficult to score 0 on it. There must be
because the fact that you want to do it would suggest that you've got something driving you towards it.
Yeah, unless someone's actually physically putting a gun to your head and telling you to fill out this diagnostic, I can't see how you wouldn't score at least 2 on the need for change, because you've got a curiosity to at least fill out the diagnostic.
But I suppose if you get a very low score, you might just think, you've just told me I can get someone in to help me with a vision. I can get someone to hold me accountable. I can buy in the skills, the support that I need, well, yeah, you can. And you can get over your self-confidence issue by saying, well, I'll just pay them to do it all and then it'll work. But the thing here is the thing in the middle. It's meant to be a personal thing, or it's meant to be your business thing. It's, well, if you're not actually one of any of the drivers on any of these things, why are you even doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally. This might actually be a tool to go, well, that might be a nice idea, but you've got none of the things you need to do this. Why do you want to do it?
Yeah, and that probably triggers a more fundamental question about you as a person and your business.
Have you asked the right question?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, you can have the best coach or advisor or whatever in the world, but they can only hold you accountable. They can't do it for you. So they may come up with the best plan in the world, lay out the best vision possible, and help you with the tools to develop these like high performing habits. But they still come from you. It still requires you to get up in the morning.
They can't change your mindset, for instance. They can give you tools and ways of thinking.
Yeah. Tackle issues around like self-sabotage and motivation and stuff like that.
But if ultimately you've got no interest in doing it, it's quite hard to make you do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if someone forced me to learn how to play the violin, in time I could pull a few notes off it. But sitting today, I got, other than a whimsical ideal of being able to play an instrument, I've got no interest in playing the violin. So I would probably score like in the low, single numbers here. So why would I bother? Why would I even buy a violin? I wouldn't. Do you know what I mean?
And then I suppose another example is if you're selling your business, or let's say you're of an age coming up to retirement age. Again, there's something that's happened with your industry where it's going to require some fundamental changes to your business. If you're scoring low, because you may have like that personal energy, because you're like,
because you've done it for 40 years,
I'm too old for this.
This is one change too many. Yeah.
That's when you might go, well, maybe this is an indication that I need to sell up. I need to start thinking about succession.
I'm not the right person to drive that change. I don't know why, but I've seen this quite a lot in, I want to say, solicitors and probably landlords as well. So post 2008, there was a lot of changes in the regulation around property lending. There was a lot of fraud being going on in, artificial surveys, and the insurance premiums for anyone doing conveyancing absolutely ballooned. There's a lot of solicitors who were basically losing their practices because of, they just hadn't been ticking the right boxes. And a lot kind of went, well, I'm too old. That's it. Then that's the sign that I need to get out. Yeah. And again, it happens in property. People go, this is just one regulation too many. I can't be bothered. Yeah. And if you started your property journey 40 years ago when you basically gave someone the keys and collected the cash off them and that was about it, you might feel now that this massive regulation's just one too many, And so you see this all the time and maybe don't realise that it's probably because they score low on these things. And again, you haven't got a need for change if you've made your money and you're nearly out anyway. Well, I don't need to learn this. Yeah. I've got no reason to do that. I could probably come up with a plan, but I don't need to. Why would I bother?
The plan was to kind of sit it out till retirement.
The plan was retirement, Maybe
that was in 6 years' time, but now suddenly maybe I have to bring that forward.
So just if people want to do this, then Jack, it's quite easy, isn't it? They can just reach out. You can send them a link. They can fill it in. They get a report. I did it this morning. It took me like 10 minutes, less, 5 minutes. These are easy questions. It feels to me like it was designed to just answer first instinct, not like microanalyze. Have I got a plan? It's not asking if you've got a plan. It's like,
it's not. It's not for philosophical thought where you have to pontificate over. Yeah,
you open it and you just do it in 5 minutes and you're done. And it gives you, again, it's like a read of your gut instinct, isn't it? And it feels like the kind of thing, as long as you get a reasonable score, well, you can probably fill the gaps. If you're nowhere near, you maybe have put the wrong topic in at the start as to what you should be changing towards. Yeah. And it's probably more of an indicator that you need to probably just reassess where you're going, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Which sounds quite deep. It's not meant to be. I quite enjoy doing it. It's quite quite fun to see the result.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's quite an easy thing for people to have a go at.
It's also the tip of the iceberg, because there's a number of diagnostics that we can actually run, and this is generally the first ones we run with like a new client, because we want to get to know them a little bit more in terms of like generally when we get involved with them, it's at that point where they're either experiencing change or anticipating change and they don't know how to react. So we need to understand how they would react, or how ready they are for us to potentially put some new ideas to them.
Because you could argue this is as grading. It's a grading on how up for the fight someone is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't mean whether they're ready for it. They might not be ready for it, but they might have all the composite skills and tools to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And you just need to persuade them to be up for it, or they might be completely up for it but just be lacking in a couple of areas. So it's a great little. I don't know, it feels like something that's a great thing to do just before something big is going to happen.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, just give yourself the best chance, I think. Yeah.
Definitely something to be mindful of when you're about to go in. It's so much of this is about kind of self-awareness and then self-management.
Yeah.
Because the best way to ensure a good outcome is being aware of what the potential tripping points are going to be.
Potential failure, yeah. Because there's a great exercise, isn't it? I don't know where this came from, but I don't know if it was in a book that I read. It might be the 5 dysfunctions of a team, but it's not an original idea, I'm sure. But there's this idea that you can sit and plan out what you're going to do, but you can also imagine that you failed and work out why you failed.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes you think about things in a different way. And this is almost like, well, I could just crack on, or I could find out where my weaknesses are going to be here. Yeah. Before I start.
It's similar.
Tweak those, and then
similar to what we've done before with clients, where it's like a pre-mortem, opposite of a post-mortem. Where
that's probably exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, you anticipate that.
Didn't know the fancy words. Sorry. Yeah. So instead of waiting until it fails, then looking back, you put yourself in the mindset of, if that did fail, or when it failed, what happened. And you kind of, before you get in, you figure out where it fails. Mm-hmm. And this feels like it's kind of like in that kind of area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed, yeah.
Well, I quite fancy this, but there's no need for it. So are you really going to put the time in? When you're time starved, you haven't got a plan for it, and there's no need to do it. Yeah. You're probably not going to do it, are you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably not. Well, listen, Jack. As always, as soon as you drop one of these tools on me, I think they're great.
If only you were paying me for them.
Yeah, well, that's your bad, isn't it? You need to work on your plan.
Good. I think we need to come up with one together.
Yeah, you need to increase the chances of your success by implementing some high performance habits, like charging for work. But yeah, no, I mean, joking aside, we're more than happy to run this for you for free if you want to just get the report. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you want to then sit and dissect what it's going to be, then that would be an exercise. But, happy to run the report and have a chat about it. Certainly if you've got anything change coming up. And I think if you do this and you get a score that suggests you're not ready, then that's probably where more help would come in. We would look to see what it is and get a feel. But yeah, we hope you've found that of interest. If so, then it's been Martin and Jack from the Accelerator team. If not, then it's been someone else from somewhere else. But yeah, as always, hope you've enjoyed the topic. Any questions, queries, put them in the link, reach out to us. It's always great to hear feedback from people. And yeah.
Are we going to rest our blisters now?
We're going to rest our blisters, yeah. So yeah, the short story there is, so Jack's sister.
Yes, my sister Jess, we ran the Great North Run together 13 years ago. She has cystic fibrosis, and since we ran it 13 years ago, our health's kind of declined a bit, and she's to a point where she was actually on the lung transplant assessment list. But then she's been on this new medication over the past couple of years, and her lung function's shot back up. Fantastic new lease of life, to the point where she's managed to strong-arm me into taking her around the Great North Run course again. She was on oxygen, so we were kind of helping her around.
But was still ahead of me, yes. Embarrassingly.
So we were pulling a trolley of oxygen around. You did help with that.
A little bit. I managed to get on the photos.
Yes, yeah, you had an uncanny knack of spotting any photographer, and I'll take over from here, Jack.
Grabbing the trolley just at the relevant time, obviously.
Yeah. But it was great fun. Hard work. Everyone was sore and tired afterwards, but it was good fun.
Definitely something I was proud to be a part of.
Yeah,
I've already said that, so yeah.
Yeah, and same for me. Obviously I've known my sister all my life and always been a huge fan of hers and idolised her for her amazing way that she lives her life. But then just seeing so many people coming up to her over that, just saying, "You are amazing. You are such an inspiration." And she was just like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I was happy to bask in the reflective glory.
Yes, we were there just like, it's a team effort, you know.
Yeah. I think I did actually shout that out a couple of times in a moment of oxygen-starved pain. Okay, right. So anyway, I would be interested to see if I can run this for my chances of a PB next year in the North Run. Yeah, 2020. I've got to be honest, at the minute, my desire for that is very low, so I might need to let the pain subside before I run this. So joking aside, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Like I say, reach out to Jack and he'll be very happy to run this tool for you and give you an idea. It doesn't predict with certainty how likely something is to happen, but certainly gives you something to think about before you jump in both feet. So, reach out, get your score, see what you need to do, and if you need to do something, we'll be happy to help you with that. Thanks very much, Jack. Thank you for watching and listening.